It is time to give my official reaction to the 2024 election. Trump wins again, Trump pulls it off again. And I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about his campaign and also, in contrast, the Harris campaign as well. And there's a guy that I listen to on YouTube, and he talks a lot about the NFL and college football. And one specific dynamic he brings up fairly often is that you always have your main staple teams that are always competitive. They're not sneaking up on anybody. You know who they are. Teams like the Chiefs, teams like the Ravens, teams like the Steelers that always find a way to consistently win and be competitive. The Steelers always find a way to be above 500. We don't really know how they do it, but they always find a way to do it. But every year, you have at least one or two teams that kind of come out of nowhere and they take a lot of people by surprise and people underestimate them and they end up having a lot of success. Last year, it was the Texans with a rookie quarterback. This year, it's the Commanders with a rookie quarterback. And so, depending on where you stand and how much success you've had in the last couple of years, people treat you differently, right? Maybe in this case, the Texans aren't sneaking up on anybody this year because they've seen it, they know that they have talent, and nobody is taking those games for granted. And so it can be different and it can be hard. It can be difficult to win year to year because you're not sneaking up on everybody every year. And to see Trump pull off a similar thing, a similar circumstance where in 2016 he was definitively the underdog. He comes in, he gets on the debate stage with all of these other politicians, and it's kind of funny, it's comical to watch him maneuver through all of those situations and discussions, and there's a lot of viral moments and things like that. But then you start to realize that people are kind of underestimating him and he's actually gaining some traction. And then you turn around and he is the Republican nominee and ends up winning the presidency. And he does so as an underdog. And then to fast forward to 2024, where everybody knows who Trump is. He's not taking anybody by surprise. People are figuratively and literally gunning for him in the 2024 election cycle, but yet he still finds a way to pull it off. And I just think that's really impressive. I think Trump handled this election cycle very well, considering how intense it was and considering all the things that he personally went through. I think there would have been a lot of, if you look back throughout this year specifically, 2024, there were a number of different circumstances where he could have came out and said the wrong thing, which, Trump is Trump. He is going to say some stupid things, but he could have handled them less gracefully than he did. And I think that he has matured somewhat. As I don't consider Trump to be a politician, but being in that atmosphere, I do think he's matured and pulled the reins back a little bit and did a very good job this time around. Picking JD Vance, I think, was a good choice as well. See, the presidential debates, whether it's between him and Biden or him and Harris, I think leave a lot to be desired. I don't think very many minds were actually changed during those debates. But I do think that the vice presidential debate between Waltz and Vance, I think did really shed some light on the contrast between the two running administrations. And Vance did really well in that debate. And I think it's good when you see the secondary, the running for vice president, they're the secondary players in all of this. But I think it really does, I think he really did a good job of showing what the Trump administration has to offer, the role that Vance plays in it compared to the role that Waltz plays in the Harris administration and what their administration would look like in power. So I think all around it was a success. It obviously resonated with the American people. And, you hate to see an assassination attempt on any candidate, but I think it really showed the I think Trump handled it in terms of I think he handled it gracefully. I don't think he let it get in his way. He didn't let him he didn't let it affect him negatively and his campaign negatively in terms of emotion. And he powered through, and he showed a fighting attitude and a desire to fight. And I think people gravitated towards that. You know, it's a shame that it took an assassination attempt to galvanize the American voters, but I do think that the way that he handled it, the fact that he survived, the fact that he kept on fighting, I do think that that resonated with a lot of people, and that showed in the election results. As for the Harris campaign, I don't think they chose the candidate, their nominee, early enough. They certainly didn't choose Kamala Harris as their nominee early enough because they didn't give themselves enough time to come up with a solid game plan that would cover up her political inadequacies. It took a long time for them to actually decide who was going to be representing the Democrat Party. You know, we heard things, well, it's just going to be Biden. They're just sticking with Biden. Or is it going to be Gavin Newsom? Or actually, we're just rolling with Kamala Harris. And by the time they actually made a decision, it was really too late. And I would say the difference is that from the moment Trump lost the 2020 election, the day after the 2020 election, that is when his campaign started. We knew he was coming back. We knew he was going to be the nominee. We knew that he stood the best chance. And he built that momentum over the last 4 years and was able to carry that momentum for 4 years. Whereas with the Democrat Party, it's like, is it Biden? Is it Harris? We don't know. We're actually going with Harris. They just don't have enough time to build enough momentum to overcome the momentum that Trump had built really over the last, over the last 4 years, but also ever since Trump started getting involved in politics. So I think that was one of the biggest flaws, is that they just didn't get together a solid game plan, especially for somebody like Kamala Harris, where, you know, the problem with Harris, and here's really the problem with the mindset the Democrats had coming into this election. The Democrats thought that the only political identity or characteristic that you had to have is that you are not Trump. Because Kamala Harris, in terms of her performance as a vice president and what they expected of her, she really has nothing to offer. She has nothing to offer except she is not Trump. That is really the only thing the Democrats were throwing out there. It's like, we don't really know what she's doing. You know, what did she do as a vice president? We don't know. The people don't know. I don't know. I don't think that Kamala Harris knows what she's doing either. But at least she is not Trump. That is Kamala Harris's political identity. And if you look at somebody like Trump, Trump has an established political identity. For better, for worse, good, bad, and ugly, he has an identity. Joe Biden has a political identity. You might not like what he does. You might not like what he says, but he has established himself as a prominent player in the Democrat Party for decades. Obama had a political identity. Kamala Harris does not have a political identity outside of the fact that she is not Trump. And the Democrat Party believed that that would have been enough to defeat the Republicans, to defeat the Trump administration. And as we have seen over the last 24 hours, it just simply is not. And I think it really goes to show how much the Democrat Party really discounts the American people. Like, that's all we have to offer you. She's not Trump. That should be good enough. Do you not have like anything else to offer the American people? They don't. They think so little of the American people that they can simply throw out a one-trick pony in Kamala Harris, and the one trick that she knows is that she is not Trump. It's not about anything that Kamala Harris can do on her own. It's not about what she has to offer as an individual. It's not about her policy. It's not about who she is as a human being, how good of a person or a leader she is. It's all about the fact that she is not Trump. And again, as we have seen, it just simply is not enough. They took the support of the American people for granted. They thought they could do some weird sleight of hand. The only thing that matters is that Harris is not Trump, and that should be enough to get us over the hump. It clearly was not. They did not put together a solid campaign plan, especially in the case of Kamala Harris, who again does not have a political identity and really doesn't have a whole lot to offer in and of herself as an individual. And so Trump pulls it off again. I mean, very impressive considering all the things that he has gone through, the ups and downs from the 2016 election to the 2020 election to this year's election, the roller coaster ride that it has been. But he comes back, he gets the victory, and so hats off to them.